Is our mic hot? Awesome. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for being here. It's incredible to be surrounded by these people behind me, these supporters, these allies, these advocates. And I want to particularly shout out Mayor Ginther behind me for his support in getting us to where we are here today making this announcement. I want to, both City Attorney Klein and Auditor Kilgore were not able to be here, but their support was critical. I want to acknowledge my colleagues, first and foremost, Council President Shannon Hardin, Councilmember Rob Dorans, Councilmember Emmanuel Remy, and Councilmember Nick Bankston. And of course, the official, unofficial Women's Caucus, right here flanking me, who will, of course, get to in a moment here. I also want to acknowledge we have several other elected officials from different levels of government with us. We have House Minority Leader Allison Russo, and I would like to pause and give her a round of applause for her work on the front lines. Thank you so much, Leader Russo. I would like to acknowledge our everyone in our delegation to the State House, but particularly joining us here today, Representative Dontavius Gerals. We have several members of local government from various jurisdictions. Upper Arlington City Council member Michaela Burris. We've got school board member of Gahanna, Burl Pickle Antonio. And like anyone else who's an elected official, raise your hand. We are joined today by doctors too, because this is a people issue and it's a doctor's issue especially. I want to shout out Dr. Anina Samani. We are also joined by several area commissioners, and I wanted to point that out because no one, is here in an official capacity, but I want to make sure that all of our residents understand what our area commissioners do on an everyday basis to fight for communities, not just in the meetings that they take monthly. So thank you to our area commissioners who are here. So as I said, Council members Shayla Favor and Lord Esporoso de Padilla and I are the official, unofficial Women's Caucus. But more importantly today, along with all of you, we are the women that the state of Ohio and the Supreme Court of this nation want to deny exist. The ideas of liberty and equality, as written into our founding documents, were indeed only ideas, and pretty deceitful ones, as written by a collection of white male property owners, most of whom were also slave enslavers. But generations of Americans have regarded those principles instead as an aspiration. For centuries, each generation was given the project of more fully realizing American freedom, liberty, and equality. Over time, and still far too slowly, the people have fought to win and move this nation closer to a full realization of those founding values. And while conservatism has always been a threat to progress, the radical right that has slithered into power currently is more than that. They have forsaken the American project towards greater freedom. The U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Dobbs v. Jackson has overturned 49 years of precedent, protecting a full half the population's right to bodily freedom. The Ohio Constitution purports to preserve individual, inalienable rights, and even the explicit freedom to choose health care. But their immediate implementation of the fetal heartbeat bill stripped Ohioans of their full range of essential health care options, of their bodily autonomy and control over their reproductive lives, of their family autonomy to make decisions about how, whether, or when to be a parent. Here in the city of Columbus, we cannot overturn Ohio law. However, I want to be very clear that while Ohio Republicans have implemented a near total ban on abortion, they simply cannot stop the fact that Columbus residents will need abortion care. And that's why the City of Columbus must and will act. We're excited to move these initiatives forward today, and they will be supported by Council's previous work on reproductive health care access. As of last year, we passed an update to our non-discrimination code. It remains illegal to discriminate against others for their reproductive health care choices, whether that's to have an abortion, become a parent, seek gender-affirming care. No resident should be denied housing, work, or access to public accommodations because of these deeply personal decisions. And on Monday, Council members Favor and Barroso de Padilla and I will introduce 3 pieces of immediate action to safeguard access to reproductive health care. First, we will move to deprioritize the enforcement of laws that criminalize abortion by directing all city parties, including prosecutors and law enforcement, not to store or share information or conduct surveillance relating to residents' pregnancy outcomes or reproductive health care procedures. We have many important public safety priorities in the City of Columbus, from violent crime to mental health care crises, and the resources of the city must be dedicated to the health and well-being of its residents. Full stop. Second, we will fiercely protect consumers in our city seeking information and resources for decisions about pregnancy. Who here has heard of these fake clinics, crisis pregnancy centers? They are a scourge. Inside these centers, lay volunteers who are not licensed clinicians often wear white coats as they see people in exam rooms. They often target low-income women. They target women of color. It's a concern to all of us if lies are told in these exam rooms, up to and including claims of an association between abortion and adverse health consequences, or even encouragement not to seek immediate prenatal care. So we are introducing an ordinance to contract with Pro-Choice Ohio on a study to ensure residents of the City of Columbus have access to accurate health information. We must prevent these CPCs from hoodwinking consumers with false and misleading information. And finally, we are proud to announce that we will seed a $1 million education and access fund to relieve financial barriers to abortion access, such as transportation, childcare, and lost wages. The funding will also bolster community education regarding safe and legal reproductive health care choices and ensure continuity of information hotlines, peer support, and case management. The nonprofit organizations leading this work are Planned Parenthood of Greater Ohio and the Ohio Women's Alliance with support from Abortion Fund of Ohio. Thank you to them for their leadership and their vision, which we heard. They are providing resources to our residents. And I think of the work of these organizations and it's not only serving the people of Columbus, but also building the kind of community that women in our city need. Quite frankly, women deserve to be able to make decisions about pregnancy and abortion free from fear and free from politicians who shame and try to control them. That is the community and the care these organizations provide. Because people cannot be free and people cannot be equal without control over their own bodies, lives, and futures. And when people have access to a full range of reproductive health care services, whether that's birth control or abortion or maternity care, they are healthier and their families can thrive. Next, I'd like to turn the microphone over to my colleague, Councilmember Shayla Favor.
Thank you, Council President Pro Tem Brown, and good morning to everyone. I would like first to acknowledge and thank my colleagues, Council President Pro Tem Brown, as well as Councilmember Barroso de Padilla. You know, we're saying the unofficial Columbus City Council Women's Caucus. It is the Women's Caucus. And we're mighty and we're strong. We're small, but we're mighty and strong. So this is our official debut. I want to express my deep gratitude to our medical providers and folks that have been in this fight for years, many of who are standing behind me this morning. I want to thank you all for being here with us this morning. It has been a heavy and emotional time for many of us since the decision by the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade, 50 years of precedents, which overnight stripped birthing folks of their right to obtain safe and legal abortion in states all over this country. It's simple. Abortion is health care, and access to health care is a human right. This decision was an attack on people of color, people of low income, marginalized individuals with no health insurance, victims of rape and incest, infertile people, and those who live in healthcare deserts. It is a blow to bodily autonomy, reproductive health, patient safety, and health equity in the United States. In 2020, City Council and Columbus Public Health declared racism to be a public health crisis. It would be ignorant to not acknowledge the deep-seated racism within healthcare. Maternal and infant mortality are already highest among Ohio's Black women. In fact, from 2016 to 2020, Black women accounted for only 17% of women giving birth in Ohio, but 34% of pregnancy-related deaths. In just the last 2 years, the rate of Hispanic women with severe childbirth complications increased to 19%. And we know that this is only going to increase with abortion rights rolled back. We need to admit and acknowledge the reality of racism in our country, to stop denying and stop letting people erase our country's history. Nothing can or ever will change unless we look that in the eye. We need all of us to fight together. And I ask all of you to stand at the front lines with us. The truth is, the power of privilege is an important weapon, whether you want to accept it or not. It is the truth. And so when it comes to issues like reproductive justice, although infant mortality is higher among Black babies, and although fibroids affect Black women more than white women, we need everyone to carry the torch along with us, because we need federal dollars and resources to be invested to make true change. And if I may, I would like to take an opportunity to elevate a specific topic that has not received the proper attention in our current conversation about abortion in general. Approximately 1 in 8 couples are affected by infertility in the United States. That's about 6.7 million people each year who have trouble conceiving. Infertility is not a women's problem. Both men and women can contribute to infertility. Why is this important? Well, for any couple or individual that has needed artificial reproductive treatment, like in vitro fertilization or intrauterine insemination, the reality of your dream to one day start a family got a little bit darker after the Dobbs decision, as many of those procedures include the creation of embryos, which are later transferred with the hope of implantation and a live birth. But the reality is that only 50% of IVF procedures result in live births, which means that in those instances where implantation has failed or that a woman has experienced a miscarriage, also known as a medical abortion, that woman's life is in danger up until the moment the tissue has been expelled or removed. And in these instances, which are more common than people know, time is of the essence for the health, safety, and life of the mother. And now in the state of Ohio, if you're past the 6-week mark, you could be in jeopardy of criminal sanctions as a doctor or mother if an abortion is performed that would arguably save the life of the mother, as many doctors will be extremely cautious in advocating for a natural miscarriage, which can take weeks to fully complete, as opposed to a D&C, which is immediate, or a pill that aids the miscarriage along. Actually, the median time of discovering pregnancy was just under 5 weeks. This would leave 7 days for patients in Ohio to get an abortion under the current 6-week ban. This is an absolute atrocity. And I want you to think about that. You have just received the most devastating news that you have lost your baby, that you have hoped and dreamed of, and now because you may be beyond the 6-week mark, which is more than likely, you will literally need to wait and sit for the most horrible part to happen, which can happen weeks or days later. The decision to have a medical abortion procedure is different for each person. It may be an unsuccessful attempt at pregnancy, a pregnancy in result of rape or incest, a danger to the life and the health of the baby or the mother, or it just may not be the right time to take on the role as a caretaker. Regardless of your reasons, it's not our business, and these are not decisions that should be made by any political body, but a private decision that should be made by a doctor or an individual and couple. In times like this, it is normal to feel hopeless, to be afraid, and to be disappointed, to be angry. The historic case that solidified abortion as a fundamental right in our country disappeared overnight. And we have seen over the years, through the Supreme Court, other fundamental rights that were created, such as the right to contraception, the right to marry who you choose, the right to travel, and the right to privacy. All of those were born out of case law like Roe v. Wade. And now, just like Roe, all of these fundamental rights are now in jeopardy. So now more than ever, we need you to work alongside us. We need to use our collective power to fight and to make change. And so I stand here this morning alongside my colleagues who decided to be in this fight together. And we channeled our energy into policy. We knew we had to do something to do the right thing, to protect the reproductive rights of our residents to the best of our ability. You heard from our Council President Pro Tem about the legislative package that we will pass on Monday, which includes grants to expand residents' access to reproductive health care resources, legislation to deprioritize enforcement of laws, criminalizing pregnancy outcomes, and legislation to examine the activities of crisis pregnancy centers. While these legislative pieces were an urgent and significant step, they are not sufficient on their own. This work is far from finished. And so as chair of City Council's Health and Human Services Committee, it is my commitment to prioritize this work and roll out a legislative package in the fall, which will further protect and further support reproductive rights in the city of Columbus. I look forward to working with Mayor Ginther and my colleagues at City Council to expand our city health insurance to cover IVF and travel as needed for procedures not available in our state, to allocate city resources to ensure all residents have access to reproductive care, and to get medically accurate sex education accessible to our young folks. 2 things I will leave you with first. Abortion is still legal in the state of Ohio up to the 6-week mark. And secondly, we need you in this fight. And so if you're looking to channel your energy to make change in this space, we welcome your ideas, we welcome your advocacy, and more importantly, we welcome your support. It is now my honor to introduce my friend and colleague, Councilmember Lourdes Barroso de Padilla. I'm trying to get better at the role.
I don't know. I'm the smallest in stature of the small but mighty women's caucus here. And I don't know if we normally do this at a press conference, but I just want to take a quick breath. John Lewis once said, and I'm paraphrasing, but my feet are tired, but my soul is not weary. And I think what you see today are maybe lots of tired feet, but souls that are certainly not weary, but that are energized. Because this is a time for us to not wallow in what has happened, but to be emboldened in continuing this fight and moving forward to ensuring that people today in our city who are facing difficult choices about their bodies, about the future, about their reproductive health. We see you, we stand with you, and this is for you. Women should have choice and autonomy over their bodies because abortion is health care, full stop. The Dobbs decision is impacting all because it is a social justice, socioeconomic, racism, and equity issue. And while the unfortunate truth is we know that ultimately Black, brown women, and poor women are and will be the most affected. In Franklin County alone, the infant mortality rate for Black babies is 2.5 times that of white babies. We also know that women of color have markedly more difficulty seeing a specialist when needed. In particular, Latinas were significantly more likely to report difficulties accessing specialist care. And overall, immigrant women, regardless of race, are less likely to have health care coverage and use sexual and reproductive health services. Social determinants of health account for a third to half of all health outcomes. Action requires that not only equitable access to health care, but also means working outside the healthcare system to address broader social well-being and development. Healthcare begins before you ever reach a physician. Young adults, individuals with less education, the unemployed, the unmarried have higher rates of losing health insurance, which is why a comprehensive education campaign on reproductive justice is so important to reach and educate our community where they are. Medically accurate and culturally competent sexual education and reproductive health is important now more than ever. And reproductive health is a personal choice. My colleagues and I are committed to making real investments so that every person with a uterus can make the best, most informed decisions about their own bodies. We're excited to launch a comprehensive reproductive health education campaign later this year, with a focus on people furthest from justice, Black and brown communities, and immigrants, migrants, refugees, and the poor and the uninsured. With an intentional focus on these communities, we hope to narrow the access gap, increase healthy outcomes, and improve healthcare options for all. This year, like my colleagues before me, I am proud to serve as a member of the Columbus Women's Commission. The Commission has been a strong advocate for women in the workplace, working to close the pay gap, advocating for family leave, early childhood education, and affordable care, and the overall empowerment and well-being of all women in our community. I look forward to working with my fellow commissioners on this issue as we set forth our policy priorities. This fight is not over, my friends. It is only just beginning. We stand united with all of you to protect our rights to make choices for our own bodies and to ensure that we have the access and education to make the best choices for ourselves. And we cannot do this alone because change only happens but for the people. I'm excited to introduce a bold, brave leader in this fight with us. Please welcome Iris Harvey, the CEO of Planned Parenthood of Ohio.
Wow, what an incredible day to stand here in Columbus with a committed group of public officials who don't step back, they step forward, they know what needs to be done, they caucus, they seek input, and then they never say no. And I am so grateful to all of you for your braveness, for your willingness to make sure that people in Columbus will get the care that they need out of our state, and that you continue to be partners with us. We greatly appreciate all of you. So my heart is full. My heart is really full. On behalf of the hundreds and thousands of people who will have a chance to benefit from the funding that we are getting today, I want to send my gratitude. I'd also like to quote someone, Abraham Lincoln, when speaking about a new birth of freedom, said that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. Today, we are experiencing a government at its best. So let me say that again. We are experiencing today a government at its best. Your act of generosity signals your belief that all people need the freedom to make decisions about their bodies without the restrictions and interference by the state. Your funding will make it possible for thousands of pregnant people to seek care and comfort while being forced to leave the comfort of their own home in this state. No person should be forced or denied health care that they need and that they want. No person should be forced to cross a state border in order to get the care that they need. And no person should have to fear that their government will turn against them and prosecute them when they return, just because they've made the most personal decision that you can possibly make, and your state doesn't stand beside you. So at Planned Parenthood and other providers across the state, and those who support people who need to have an abortion, we are the ones that are hearing the fears every day. We are the ones that are seeing the tears of the people who are feeling trapped in their own home. They feel abandoned by the state of Ohio, the place that they call home. The Columbus City Council stands out as an exception. You have signaled to your citizens that you trust the choice that they make for their lives, and they can count on you to help break down barriers, to reject inequalities, and to welcome back to this state any person who needs to travel out of state to get the abortion that they need. I cannot say thank you enough on behalf of the staff who every day tend to people who care no matter what, and all of the patients and people who support them. We are very privileged to have you by our side, and we are mostly grateful for your compassionate and your heart. Thank you. And now I am going to introduce another foundation of our movement, Jordan Cross.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Close. I'm the board president of Abortion Fund of Ohio, also called AFO, Ohio's only statewide abortion fund. For the past 30 years, we have helped Ohioans access abortion care, directly paying for their services, and wraparound services like transportation, lodging, childcare, and housing. In addition to my work with AFO, I'm the Executive Fellow at Ohio Women's Alliance, OWA, a statewide membership of grassroots leaders, organizers, community builders, and activists. I'm proud to be here today, not merely as a representative of these two organizations, nor only as an Ohioan who has had an abortion, but critically both as a leader and a person with lived experience. I came to reproductive justice 6 years ago when I had an abortion at 18 years old. It was the best decision I could have made for my future. For me, like many, the barriers to abortion were not moral or emotional. They were financial, logistical, and societal. Abortion stigma is so pervasive that despite millions of Americans having had an abortion, most public figures would not even say the word abortion until our right to it was already stripped from us. Only once it was deemed safe would abortion enter the otherwise familiar speeches, fundraising emails, and TV appearances from our leaders. As reproductive justice organizations in this movement, AFO and OWA are committed to working through a reproductive justice lens, including our continued support of abortion access. Ultimately, our work centers the experience of Black women and gender nonconforming people who are disproportionately impacted by attacks on reproductive rights. Abortion is not just a women's issue. We are working towards a liberated Ohio that takes a stake in all people having agency over their bodies, safety, education, economic prosperity, and full reproductive justice. Much has changed in our work in the past year and in the past few weeks, yet the stigma and shame still lingers. Let me be clear. Abortion storytellers have been routinely left out of rooms where decisions are being made about our autonomy and our experiences. People that have had abortions, particularly Black women, have been ringing the alarm about these attacks on our rights for years. Listen to us. Even now, the remnants of a divided city, state, and nation are evident in the systemic criminalization, oppression, and erasure of the most impacted by this work. In all our work, we are committed to connecting Ohioans with the care they both need and deserve, and we are truly thrilled to work with the city on this shared vision of ensuring bodily autonomy and reproductive health care for all. Thank you so much to City Council for this initiative, and we are looking forward to expanding reproductive health care in Columbus and the state.
And with that, I want to say thank you again to our speakers for traveling to join us and for speaking their truths and their experiences. I want to thank the elected officials and community members behind me. And I want to share the utmost gratitude with my colleagues, all our City Council colleagues, and especially our Women's Caucus here. So thank you. We will all be available for interviews or whatever off the privately. Thank you.